God bless everybody today. It is April 20th of 2024, and this is an update on the parable of the fig tree and the paradigm of the three modern day kings charts. I've actually modified and adjusted all my charts to so they're updated. Now I want to explain something. This is going to be a longer video because I've gone through everything and I want to modify it so that it's as proper as possible at all times. And what I found was I thought I had put myself in a hole until actually I started to plot this out, and it actually then recorrected itself completely and it fit in all my charts. So I'm excited, but yet I'm depressed because when I tell you what I have to tell you, you're not going to be happy. I'm not happy about my findings, but I'm going to give it to you straight because that's what we do here. So I'm going to throw this down on you. It's going to be a longer video. Please follow me. If you've followed my charts and stuff in the past, this will make sense. What's amazing is once I adjusted the original chart, it adjusted everything else and I didn't hardly have to touch anything. So I have to think there's some validity in here, guys. So let's go into this and I'll show you what I'm talking about and how this changes everything. Or it actually gives us more clarity. It really didn't change a whole lot. It just expanded one thing, and so I got to go into that and I got to explain it. So anyway, if you go to my endofdayssurvival.com free Wix site, I don't sell anything out here. You'll notice that I have 5 PDFs. I have modified all of these charts to today, so they've all been updated. The nice thing about what I found was when I modified this last chart, it worked with all the original charts I had put together already. And I thought I was finding myself in a hole, but then I found out that actually it all works anyway. So let's get into this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to be looking at this chart on the end. This is the one that I'm going to deal with the most. But like I say, all these charts have been modified so that they reflect this timeline here, and it's amazing I did not have to adjust hardly anything out here, at least on the older charts. I have made quite a few modifications in this file itself. So if you click on this file, that's going to take us to our timeline, and let's get right into this. So this brings up the timeline. Now I'm going to start date stamping these more so that they give you a real-time stamp in where we are in time at this very moment, and so you can see whether I've modified things on these specific charts. I will go through and probably add time date stamps to all my charts just so that you can get a better feel when they were modified actually in the chart itself. So if you've been following anything that I've done in the last 10 years, especially the last 6 or 7 years I've been doing videos, you'll realize that I work off 2 main charts that I melded together. Psalm 90:10, which is the strong generational nation of the Jews. So the chart that we're looking at is mainly built off of Psalm 90:10 because it tells us some really important things and potentially about the time of the rapture, okay, of the Jews. So this is one of my main emphasis that I use is Psalm 90:10. Then I've melded in the parable of the 3 modern day kings to show you a history lesson that should play out in the future. So for years I've tried to understand exactly what he's talking about here because this really matters. At least in my opinion, it really matters. So let's read this verse and find out how to break it out so it makes more sense. So he talks about the days of the years of a lifespan of the Jews in this case, or probably most of us in general, even the Gentiles, is that there's a 60 year and 10, which is a 7-year gap. Now, I've talked about how the nation of Israel was founded on May 14th of 1948, and how we would have seen the 70th year in 2018. Okay, and you'll see the next generation that he talks about ending in 2028, because if he talks about by reason of strength, they will be 80 years, or 4 times 20, which was 80 years. So you go from May 14th, 1948 to May 14th of 2028, which complete basically the strong generation. But I've looked at this for some time, and I'm trying to decide whether he cuts it off before the strong generation or just after the strong generation. Now, we know, if we look at the Jews, we know a couple things that we should be taking into consideration. One is we should be in a slotted 7-year Shemitah cycle that this should occur in. Okay, so you have the start of the Shemitah cycle in September of 2022, and that will run to September of 2029. And so we should be in this gap of time. The other thing that we should be aware of is that he fulfilled the spring feast when he came originally, was crucified, died on the cross, and then rose to allow his blood to cleanse us of our sins and allow us to be taken to heaven and raptured as we move forward in the future. But if you go to Leviticus 23, he talks about the high appointed days. There's only 7 of them that he basically mentions there. These are the only dates that are really indicated in the Bible that are so important to God. And what are them? They're the spring feasts and the fall feasts. Okay, and so this is extremely important, that if we understand that he fulfilled the spring feasts when he first came and was crucified, as the Jews believe, he will fulfill the fall feasts when he comes back on the second coming. And this should be a clear indication to us that he will come back in the fall, not the spring. So if a lot of people are talking about a rapture in the spring during Passover or whatever, that is not what's going to happen. They're talking about the spring feast, not the fall feast. And so we need to realize that most of the Jews believe that he will fulfill the fall feast when he comes back the second round, and that happens around September, October, during the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, and the Feast of Tabernacles. So let's look at this again. So he's talking about the 70-year generation that would end in 2018. Then he's talking about the strong generation, or the 80th year, which ends in 2028. Then he says something really important. I've always question exactly what he's talking about. Yet in their strength, labor, and sorrow, for it will soon cut off, and we will fly away. So there's 2 ways this can go. It can happen in the Feast of Trumpets prior to the strong generation, or it could happen potentially right after the strong generation during the Feast of Trumpets of 28. And that matters based on the timeline, and that's what happened to the timeline, is it's expanded out 1 full year. So what matters if we expand this out a year? Number one, we're going to be here 4.5 years instead of 3.5 years. So that's extremely important. If you go from, and I always bring this up, but this has changed now because we've added a year. If you go from the Feast of Trumpets, the first day of September 20th of 2028, and you work that back to today, we have 1,614 days. Now before, since you're adding a year, before you were at 1,260 days. So see how that's adjusted? And that's what I mean. You're going to be here a little longer than I wanted to be or expected to be, but this is what the charts are telling us. I always follow the charts, and so we got 4.5 years, guys. So let's go into this chart and see what's happening here. But I want to bring this to your attention. I keep reiterating this. This is a good and bad thing. You're going to be here another year, but in that same breath, you have more time to get ready before this really breaks out. About another year, because look, the sequence of events are the same. History is going to repeat as the future, so not much a lot change here other than we've added a year. So next year we're going to watch that siege on Jerusalem, not this year in the sense that Turkey's getting into this game, okay? This is a slow-moving train wreck happening in front of us here, okay, guys? And you can see that because there's this tit for tat, and then it takes weeks for somebody to actually do something. They're telegraphing this, but that's going to change soon. So it allows you to put oil in your lamp for a longer period of time, gives you more time to prepare, put a few cans of something in your house every week or something like that, get your water and stuff all that ready to go, make sure your oil's in your lamp, and also then it allows you to prepare mentally, physically, and to get ready for this. And it also allows you to see things coming, and you can also talk to people, let them know what's coming up because you have a roadmap here. And as you move forward, we potentially can save more souls because we have an additional year to talk to people and warn them what's coming and hopefully open their eyes and give them a totally different optic than what most people are showing them out here. So I want to reiterate this. Not a whole lot in general in the order of sequence of events has changed on this calendar. We've only expanded it out a year due to we are moving into the Feast of Trumpets of 28 due to the compression of events that are happening to the Feast of Trumpets of 27. It's not working, and I'll be the first one to admit when it doesn't. So when you expand it to 28, the Feast of Trumpets, it's amazing how it all fit in there and it still works and it makes more sense. So I'm going to give you this optics so you can see it and give you a better map so that you can see what's coming into the future. So we're going to start at the beginning of the chart. We're going to walk through this pretty quickly. I've added a lot of information from solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, and additional events that I found. So let's get into this and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, when you come to the first step here, it talks about August 21st of 2017, we have a total solar eclipse. It's the first of 4 solar eclipses, 2 partial and 2 total, okay, 4 in all, that run between 2017 and 2024, and we just had the last one on April 8th of 2024. That seemed to be a pretty important date as we were moving into April 20th, and we saw this breakout between Israel and Iran in the middle of all that, so that's extremely important. Also, these 4 eclipses made a large A over the United States, which to me shows potentially a civil war or an anarchy potentially could form in 2024 as we move forward, and especially into the selection cycle in November of 2024. And when it went over April 8th, we had a massive alignment of 6 stars, moon and sun. You had 2 X's form over the United States, over San Antonio, Texas, and the new Madrid fault line in Missouri, Illinois border area. And so those are extremely important things to look at. You also have the Devil Comet that's still going through as we walk into Passover here of 2024, and so this is extremely important. I marked all 4 of these on this chart. Now, on October 6th of 2019, the Trump administration ordered American troops to withdraw from northeastern Syria. This created a vacuum which allowed Turkey to enter the war or to invade basically on October 9th of 2019, 3 days after this event, he filled that vacuum. And this is when I believe that we started this first horseman, or on Yom Kippur. I believe Erdogan is the first seal. He'll die on the sixth seal, which will bring a resurrection of Antichrist up on the fifth and sixth trumpet, as I've talked about many times. This happened on the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. This was actually on my birthday. I was with my mother at that time. She had dementia. I was in her basement. I finished my 117-step timeline on this very day. And the day that I finished that, we saw this breakout of Syria from Turkey, and this is documented in my videos. So you can go back and look some of those original videos back around this time. Shortly after that, probably a month or two, that I had indicated that these things had happened. What's extremely important, though, now another thing I'll say about this real quick, I'm not I'm not a political guy in the sense that I think any president's going to matter to our situation at this point in time. I don't care who you put in there, God's in control at this point, and it won't make a difference. Trump messed up here when he removed the troops from northeastern Syria. Biden did the same thing when he created the vacuum in Afghanistan and left that and left the Taliban in place. So both these guys have issues. They both also broke the state of Israel in half. So you do not break God's land in half and create a two-state solution, okay? So both of these guys in their tenure as president have done that also. So Biden and Trump both have done that. And this is going to bring judgment against us. Biden just did this in his State of the Union, and then we had all those astrological events, and we're getting ready to walk into an additional war, and Iran is dragging us into this war with Israel. And so this is going to get very complicated because we are in World War III right now, guys. So if you don't get that, you need to. So right after Trump removed the troops, Erdogan came in, filled the vacuum, and then right after this date, we started to see the reports of COVID come out in the Chinese provinces around the mid part of October. Okay. And what happened? By the end of the year, the very beginning of 2020, we saw it was a global pandemic. And the World Health Organization came out and stated that it was a global pandemic at that very time. This block of three, I thought was extremely important. The rabbis in Jerusalem were coming out indicating that they were very concerned that all these people were going to blow the shofar basically wherever they wanted, all over the place. And there's a very ritualistic ceremony, and they're very restricted in how they can deal with these holy vessels and how they can, they can't remove them from their homes. They have to be in a temple or inside their home, or certain things have to happen for them to blow these shofars on this very specific day, on the first day of the Feast of Trumpets. And what happened was they were just basically going out there and doing it however they wanted to. And the rabbis and I were both, I think I did 3 videos on this, complaining that this was wrong. They shouldn't be doing this. The third temple's not up, number one. Even though it tells you they should blow the shofar on the Feast of Trumpets, as indicated in the Torah. And so this is extremely important. But because of the way they were doing this, they were putting a thumb in God's eye. And this was going to unleash the king of the north, or Turkey, against them. And it was a warning for Israel and Judah that Turkey was getting ready to come into the game, as he already had back here. When you get into June 10th of 21, this was the second annular eclipse of the four solar eclipses that will occur between 2017 and 2024. Okay, June 4th of 22, this date has changed. And the reason this date has changed is because this is your 2300 day marker. Okay. So if you go from June 20 or June 4th of 22 and you work that back 2300 days to the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles of October 11th of 2028, that is your 2300 day marker. Okay, so I want to point that out, make you realize that that marker is there for a reason. I've added additional markers out here that I think we should always just keep our eye on. It's just important. It deals with the Jewish calendar. It also deals with, star, moon, sun, things like that, as he always tells us we should be keeping our eye on these things. So I've just put a few things on here for our basic information. September 22nd of 2022, you have the fall equinox. September 25th of 2022, you have Rosh Hashanah begins, the Feast of Trumpets begins. And then this is extremely important, September 25th to 26th, as you get into this block here, you have the end of the sabbatical year and the end of the Shemitah cycle for 2015 to 2022. You come into September 27th of 22, Rosh Hashanah begins or ends, and the Feast of Trumpets ends. And then what happens? So when we look at the September 27th of 2022 date, this is the start of this new 7-year Shemitah cycle that runs from September of 2022 to September of 2029. And so we're in that Shemitah cycle right now, okay? And then once you move out of 29, that puts you in a new 7-year Shemitah cycle between 2029 and 2036. And I hope we're not in that Shemitah cycles. That's a long time from now. Another thing that I had indicated on this, that by the spring of 2023, which I think we've seen, Israel will start to lose their fortunes. They'll be hit by potential famines, economic collapse, locusts, disease, plagues of all kinds of different things, and this will start in the spring of 2023. Look at where we're at now. They're basically total siege. Getting close to total siege with 300 rockets coming and drones coming in from Israel. That's going to turn into a total siege once Hezbollah gets in. We are talking about Joel 1. Joel 1 indicates, just as Ezekiel 5:12 indicates, that they will be Israel will be affected by plagues, famine, and then by the sword, and then a remnant will be removed. Also, you had that Netanyahu who came in. They started to see a lot of protests, things like that. So we're starting to see the whole system break down in Israel itself. Once you get to this April 5th block here, now, I've talked about this quite a bit because I thought this was extremely important, because Daniel talks about this. And he talks about the daily sacrifices being removed. This actually happened in real time. The continual burnt offerings were stopped on April 5th of 2023. Why is this important? Because if you move that back, or move that forward in time with those 1290 and 1335 days, that takes you to these two dates here, October 16th of 2026, which is the end of the 1290 days of the daily sacrifice and the continual burnt offerings that were stopped. And then it also takes you to this November 30th date, where it says that abomination of desolation is set up. It doesn't say that it's committed, but it is set up at that moment in time. So I think that's extremely important, because about a year after that, we actually see it happen. So that's something that we should keep our eye on. So this is why that date is on there, because it impacts two dates on our chart, the 1290 days and the 1335 days that Daniel talks about. You can find basically 4 dates that I constantly target out here because I think they're extremely important are the 1260 days, which is between the signing of the treaty and abomination of desolation, the 1290 days and the 1335 days that Daniel talks about, as well as the 2300 days or mornings and nights that he talks about in Daniel 8 and 12. He gives us these markers for a reason, and that's why I use them. So to me, that was an extremely important time. I believe it matters to the chart because it indicates that these continual burnt offerings are stopped, and then we should be paying attention to that for a reason. Now this block of 3 here, this was extremely important because what had happened is in the paradigm of the 3 modern day kings, I had indicated in Gregorian dates first that we were going to see a specific set of things happen between these 2 sets of dates. Now these have changed from Gregorian to Hebrew calendar dates, and we actually had that happen a month or 2 prior to this actual event of Hamas attacking Israel. But what it indicated was around September 18th of 2023, based on the conversions that I've done in my videos, and a lot of information on this. This is something that, this happened just prior to this attack on Israel. Okay, we had documented this. Daniel was sickened for 3 weeks prior to having a vision from God. I've done videos on Daniel 10 and how Daniel 10 verse 4 and 13 would matter to us. And then what did we have? We had 3 weeks later, it ended up being October 9th of 23. There you go again. There's my birthday. I've talked about that many times. It didn't happen on my birthday though. Actually, Israel actually, once Hamas had attacked and they cleaned up their border and their interior of their country, actually Israel broke out around October 9th of 2023, and that's when Michael was supposed to go against them, and so that makes some sense. And so we sort of hit that one basically right on, guys, and so that's why I think the paradigm is still in play here and really sort of matters, and as we move forward, I believe that will play out even more. So on October 7th of 2023, we had Hamas invade through Operation Al-Azhar Flood. Talking about the Al-Azhar Mosque. They're concerned about this, and the reason this came up and why Hamas went in early compared to where they should have when Iran and Hezbollah wanted to join them. Hamas had found out they had transferred those 5 red heifers and that they were going to do a sacrifice, and so Hamas went in to try to stop that. That is still in potential play as we move into Passover in the next couple days, because Passover is on the 22nd. So we could still see a red heifer sacrifice because I think only 3 of the 5 now are still unblemished, and so they're running out of time, and cattle or cows to do the sacrifice itself. And so I still say they're going to do it before Passover. We'll see where that goes. I might be wrong. So that block was pretty much right on, guys, and I'm not trying to say anything other than that's great, because that means that we can actually lock some of this stuff in and we can start to see it happen. So hopefully we can start to see this play out, and we can see these dates literally come up in time. Now, will they hit exactly? Probably not, but they'll be close, because I'm still working on history dates when these events occurred in the past to reflect dates today, and that's not always easy because the history books are all over the place, and so you got to lock down the Hebrew dates on when these happened and then convert them to today's dates, and that then locks us in to a fairly close timeline on where we are and what's going to happen as we move forward in the next 4.5 years. Now, on October 14th of 2023, we had the 3rd of the 4 solar eclipses, so that's extremely important. On March 10th of 2024, Ramadan begins. Now, this is just in the last month, guys. So we're moving right into where we are now, okay? So you're within a month now of where we are. So on March 10th of 2024, Ramadan begins. This is the holiest, um, you know, date in the Muslim calendar, and it's extremely important to them. And so that just ended basically on April 9th and 10th of 2024. So that just occurred. And so I wanted you to keep that block of time. Now, a lot of people didn't think anything would happen during Ramadan. It didn't really. It happened right before and right after Ramadan. Okay, so there was that moment of silence in there. I talk about how Erdogan has now threatened, just in the recent few weeks, that he's getting ready to invade into Syria and Iraq against the Kurds, and so that's going to start to form those 10 nations against Israel because Turkey's getting ready to enter the battle. March 20th of 2024, you have the spring equinox, the start of spring. On April 8th of 2024, you had a lot going on. You had the sixth planet alignment with sun and moon, you had a devil comet, you had a solar eclipse, and all these things happening all at one time. Nothing happened on that very specific date, but it happened right after that, because right after Ramadan ends, we see that launch on April 13th of 2024. Iran launches 300 total drones and missiles combined at Israel. This was the first real escalation. You now bring Iran into the war, and you also brought in a number of other factions because Jordan shot down some of these things. We shot down some of these things. Um, we got bases in Iraq and Syria that were knocking things down. They shot stuff out from the Houthi side, and so those got knocked down. So all these factions and groups are coming into the war at this very moment in time. And then what happens? On April 19th, which was yesterday, we saw Israel launch a retaliatory strike inside Iran through missiles and drones that basically hit this specific area around, not on a nuclear site, but around a nuclear site, which has forced the international community a lot of unease, and also forced it spiked like Brent and oil 4% almost immediately. Now that's retraced, but as this breaks out, we're looking towards $100+ a barrel oil, which is going to change your pump prices radically soon. Now, another thing I've done on this chart, because I want to bring it up to your attention because we are here. So on that April 8th event, I put down here these blood moon, partial and complete blood moons, and total solar eclipses. Okay, so here you had a solar eclipse, and as you move into these next dates, which I've indicated here, into September 24 forward, you're going to see a number of these blood moons and solar eclipses that I think are going to affect the calendar above. And so I wanted to put these out here for your information so you can see them, and there are a number of them. So it's extremely important that we're constantly watching these things as he tells us to do. So now you're on April 20th of 2024. You're on a Sabbath. We're going to potentially see a red heifer sacrifice happening on the Mount of Olives in the next few days. That is extremely important, I think. And I think as Israel is under duress, they're going to want to speed up the Lord coming back. And through that sacrifice, they can cleanse their nation, their people. The third temple can be rebuilt, and they believe that this will speed up the process to bring the Messiah back. The problem is the Muslims won't allow that to happen. And so you have a number of things getting ready to occur at this very moment in time. Hezbollah is getting ready to come into the battle. Israel is unleashing an attack on Rafah down in Gaza, so that's going on right now. Israel and Iran now have done preemptive strikes on both countries, and so we're waiting for Iran to do something next or whatever, probably through proxies. That's what I'm talking about. Hezbollah coming in potentially next, right after April 20th of 2024, between April 2000 or April 22nd and 30th of 2024, you have Passover, and so this is an extremely important date that lines up here. Now, I've got a few question marks in here on this section because these are things that we should be watching. And once they come up, because this is a real-time chart, guys, I'm adding things as we're moving into the future in hope that I can document all this out to the end, okay, as we're going through it. We need to be watching three things. The date of Iran's second retaliatory strike, which could be Hezbollah proxies or themselves literally attacking Israel itself based on the last attack that Israel did onto Iran in that area where it was close to the nuclear plant. We need to also understand potentially the date that Hezbollah would invade Israel, as it indicates in 2 Kings 24, 1 and 2. And then we also should be looking at the date Turkey invades Syria and Iraq against the Kurds and the Medes, which would then be the start of Daniel 8. And so all these are extremely important. And I've talked about all these events forever, guys. You got multiple prophecies, of course, happening all at the same time because there were multiple prophets on the ground telling you this, and they said it was all going to happen basically all at once, okay? And God tells you it'll be the worst possible time in the history of man, and it will be sevenfold evil all at the same time, and this is just going to be terrible. Now, once you get past these three question marks, and I've had these, and I'll fill these in once these events happen, you start walking back into the paradigm of the three modern day kings, because this is one of the dates that was on there, December 12th of 2024, which makes some sense because you're talking about by the end of this year, we're going to see what? Probably Turkey down towards Israel, heading towards Egypt, okay? Because why? If you follow Alexander the Great's footprint, what does Turkey do? He comes out of Turkey, down into Syria, down into Lebanon. He skirts around and sort of sieges Jerusalem to begin with, and then he goes to Egypt. Then he's pulled back to Tyre, Lebanon. Then he goes to Erbil, Iraq. Then he goes to Baghdad, Iraq. And then he goes to Shush, Iran. And as those Kurds collapse, and Turkey follows them, the Kurds will end up aligning with Iran and being destroyed by Turkey, completing Daniel 8 prophecy. Then what happens? When Iran falls, Turkey then comes back literally against the nation of Israel with a secondary siege, as it indicates in this chart. And then look at that, on January 10th of 2025, what do we have? Tevet, which is a possible siege on Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar or Erdogan of Turkey. That's what I mean, guys. The charts really sort of line up. I just didn't realize that he was talking about the strong generational end, and then we have this small gap to the Feast of Trumpets that I didn't add into. But if you go from Feast of Trumpets of 27 to 28, it does add a year. So that's, and it actually fits in much nicer like this, and it's not compressed to the point it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so on Tevet, we possibly, in my opinion, based on history, could see that be the siege date of Turkey on Jerusalem. So by that time, first of the year, Turkey would have plenty of time to get to Jerusalem. And that's important because Turkey is a major player here and has to have the ability to invade, deal with the Kurds originally, push them to the east, and then slide down into Israel towards Egypt. Okay. When you get into March 1st of 25, that starts Ramadan. And this is extremely important, guys. Now look at this. Okay. On March 1st of 25, Ramadan begins, and you start the holy month of the Muslims. Look at these dates between March 14th and March 29th. That's a 15-day gap, a period of time. Look at this. I think this is potentially your hour of power, where your 10 nations get their power and are decimated on a sixth seal shortly after this, because what happens here? March 14th to 25, you have a total lunar eclipse. 15 days later, on March 29th, you have a partial solar eclipse. Okay, in between these dates, you have Ramadan occurring. Okay, this is crazy because look here. Ramadan ends, I know there's a lot packed in here. Ramadan ends on March 30th of 2025. Okay, so between March 1st and March 30th, look at all these potential events that could be happening. You got Ramadan starting, you got a total lunar eclipse. 15 days later, you have a partial solar eclipse. I believe this is the hour of power when he gets his gives the 10 nations 1 hour of power, or 15 days on earth to attack Israel. And then look, you have the spring equinox on March 20th to 25. You have that partial solar eclipse and new moon, which is extremely important. Erdogan, his 10 nations will be destroyed on a sixth seal event. Possible sixth seal event here, guys. Like I say, I've added all this information for a reason. And then look what happens. We start into that burial process of the 7 months of burial of the people that attacked Israel. So they bury them in the valley of Hamon-Gog. Erdogan dies in his own country. They have a burial for him. They start burning the weapons for up to 7 years. And then what happens? We have a sixth seal or a seventh seal event with a half an hour of silence, 144 selected with 7 trumpets handed out. The 4 winds are being held. The first 4 trumpets sound. 5th trumpet, the bottomless pit opens. 6th trumpet, the Antichrist and the false prophet rise. The 4 winds are released. You have the end of March of Ramadan, and then what happens? 1260 days from the Feast of Trumpets of 28 takes you to April 9th of 25, just after Ramadan ends, in this month of chaos here, guys. Look how that lines up. Okay, I know we're close. I know we're close. I know he's going to give us the answers. Okay, he's not going to leave you guys in the dark. I've been telling you this for a long, long time. Why would he do that? Revelation is to reveal, and even Apocalypse is an illumination of what is to come. He told them to seal it up to the end, and then he would reveal it to us. So then what happens as we get into this next section? Okay, you have a signing of a treaty with the nations against Israel and the Christians, because they're going to build a caliphate against us and try to convert us to the other side. The 2 witnesses appear around April 9th of 25. You start the 1260 days. That takes you to the Feast of Trumpets of September 20th of 28. That's your 1260 days. He only gets power for 1260 days, 3.5 years, or 42 months. And so that's extremely important. And so then what happens? You walk into, again, Passover right after this, between April 12th and 20th of 25. These are extremely important dates, guys. And then, like I say, you've got all these eclipses and solar eclipses, blood moon events coming up as we move forward into this chart. Okay, so you have a resurrection event here just before April 9th of 25, somewhere in the middle of Ramadan here in 2025. And then look what happens. April 26 of 25, Antichrist is now on the ground, signed a treaty with the nations, and then what? Attacks Egypt, goes back to Egypt, and basically shatters this nation, scatters them. And then what does he do? He cuts them off from the world around May 27th to 25, and then he's pulled back to the north to Tyre, Lebanon, so that he can then go against the Kurds, forcing them towards Erbil. Because when he came down from Turkey to Syria, they have an original battle, okay? He forces the Kurd to flee towards the east, towards Erbil, and then this battle that gets ready to happen here is, once he comes back to Tyre, Lebanon, he'll then go to Erbil, and you'll see that battle of Gaugamela that I talked about, where the Kurds fall back to Erbil. They don't do well. We see the Battle of Gaugamela happen. The Kurds fall back all the way down to Baghdad. Turkey chases them. They end up in Shush, Iran, where they end up being aligned with Iran itself or Persia, and then both nations, the Kurds and Iran or Persia, fall from Turkey. Okay? Then what happens? Turkey heads back towards Israel. So what happens? Wow, July 4th of 25, famine is so severe, no food is found in Jerusalem. Why? Because they're still under siege. Can you wrap your head around this? You're in July 4th on our Independence Day of 25. You're into like 15 months of siege at this point. Do you not think it wouldn't be dire over in Israel at this moment in time? It's going to be horrendous. And so we should be praying for them, but God says that judgments are set. It won't matter. Not really. He's going to eliminate 2/3 of their people and put a lot of them in captivity, and only 1/3 of these people are going to escape to the hidden place for the 1260 days, because that started here. Okay? And when were they removed? On the 6th seal. During the Mount of Olives, splitting in half, the red heifer sacrifice on the Mount of Olives, and he creates that exodus for the Jews, the 1/3 of the true believers, to leave Israel to be hidden into Jordan for the 1260 days. Okay? But now Erdogan comes back as Antichrist. He's a rose here, comes back as Antichrist, and then what happens? Attacks Jerusalem again once he goes after the Kurds in Iran. On August 4th of 2025, I've indicated this for quite some time, probably 2 years, that the walls of Jerusalem would be broken down. The residue of the people that were left in captivity would be taken to Jerusalem. Reuben Revlin, which is Zedekiah, because Isaac Herzog is captured in the original siege back here, is placed into place. He's in place for almost 18 months, and then he's captured. Okay? Now, there is a side note here. Once Isaac Herzog is captured here during the 6th seal, potentially, they put one of his potential sons in for 3 months, 10 days or so, and then he's captured. And then they put Zedekiah in place. Zedekiah is in place for about 18 months. He rebels against Antichrist. Okay? He's already wrote the story, guys. This is also the 10th of Av, okay? And you got a lot of blood moons coming up right after this. It's insane. So Reuben Revlin is captured after the wall is sieged, or after Jerusalem siege, the walls are broken down. Reuben Revlin is captured on the plains of Jericho. His 2 sons are killed, and then they're all exiled to basically Babylon, or in this case, Turkey. So we're talking about Reuben Revlin is captured on the plains of Jericho. His eyes are taken out. His sons are killed, and then he's in captivity, actually till rapture, because it says he never dies. So April 1st through the 9th of 26, so now we're into 26, we start to see Passover again. Okay, look at what's going on there, guys. April 1st of 26, okay? April 1st of 26 falls in the middle of this. You got September 7th of 2025, a blood moon event. That's a full blood moon. March 3rd of 26, you got a blood moon event. It's a full blood moon. August 12th of 26, you got a solar eclipse event. That is a total solar eclipse. Look at what's right in between that. Passover, guys. And then on August 28th to 26th, you have a blood moon event that's a partial. Now, I put the partials in there. I did not do partial solar eclipses. I think the total ones are more important. I don't have room on the chart to put all this stuff on here anyway. So here you are at Passover, okay? Look how this chart works, guys. This is extremely insane. And then right after Passover in September, during 3 Tishri, you see potentially the son of Netanyahu or Netanyahu, or however you want to say that, kills this regional leader that Antichrist puts in because why? He puts this leader in because Reuben Rivlin is taken out of commission. And so Antichrist puts in a leader which is killed within, like days. He's not in there very long. They take care of him, okay? So this then puts Israel in a condition with no leader again, okay? October 16th, 26, that is the end of the 1260 days. And look at that. Right after that, on the 15th of the month of Kislev, abomination of desolation is set up. This shows you this in 1 Maccabees 1 verse 54. If you look at this also around November 30th of 26, from the time the daily sacrifices are taken away, abomination of desolation is set up. Okay, abomination of desolation is right here, so we're only about a year off at that. And then it indicates on that very same day of November 30th of 26, the son of Netanyahu, one of these 2 boys, will proclaim a fast before Jerusalem. Now, one of these boys, I believe, kills this regional leader. There is a military boy in one of these. I believe it is Abner, but I'm not sure. I can't remember anymore. One of these is a military boy and one's not. He's a scholar. So when you get into December 14th, 26, Jerusalem and Israel are smitten and utterly destroyed. Wow, right before abomination starts to happen. February 16th to 27, God places a lamentation against Egypt, states that God will destroy everything there. So now he's back messing with Egypt, and that makes sense because think about it. The king of the south, which is Egypt, is going against the king of the north. They're constantly fighting back and forth, and so sooner or later Antichrist is going to fix Egypt's wagon completely, and Egypt, based on the exodus of the Jews and the history of the Jews in Egypt, he's probably going to judge them radically bad. Okay, I'm just saying it's probably not going to be very good. So on March 3rd, after he plays a lamentation down on Egypt on February 16th to 27, March 3rd to 27, Egypt is cast down. All the people are basically destroyed and killed. Even the leader of Egypt is killed, which is Al-Sisi. At this very moment, he just had an election. April 21st to 28 to 27, we have Passover again. And then right after this, well, it's not right after it, but as you move into December, and this is extremely interesting, guys. This is so interesting. The 25th of Kislev, which is when basically abomination happened in the temples prior, is on December 25th or Christmas. Okay, really? So he's going to desecrate this temple and commit abomination of desolation on Christmas on the Temple Mount during December 25th of 2027. And then right after that, he destroys the two witnesses. And then they lie in the streets for 3.5 days and are overcome by Antichrist. Okay? And then he says what? He's going to shorten the second half. And we're going to end up in the Feast of Trumpets shortly after that. Okay? So right after Abomination of Desolation, you're not in tribulation anymore. You're in Great Tribulation. Okay? On July 31st of 28 to August 1st of 28, the third temple destruction could happen on the 9th of Ab as it happens in the past. Okay? 2 Kings 25:8 and Jeremiah 52:12 indicate that the first temple destruction occurred in July of 586 BCE, and so we are right here in July. Isn't that crazy how that plays out? The second temple destruction also occurred on the 9th of Av on August 30th of 70 CE, and so you're in this gap of July, August. When you get to April 10th through the 17th of 28, you're talking about Passover again, and then what happens? You're in the Feast of Trumpets of 28, September 20th to 22nd of 2028, which in my opinion would happen on the first day because there's a marriage here and a procession of events through the fall feast that he must follow. So I would suspect that he'll come down on the first day of the Feast of Trumpets. This is not a sabbatical Saturday, but because it is the Feast of Trumpets, it would be a new moon. Okay? Then what happens? We start pouring out the bowls because you've been raptured at this point, and all that's left are the wicked. Okay, so that's the end of your 1260 days. You pour out the first 4 bowls. The 5th bowl is destroying Mystery Babylon. I believe that is Pergamus, Turkey, in my opinion. It's the seed of the beast. You go to Revelation and the letters to the 7 churches. It talks about a specific destruction through Jesus's 2 sword tongue, and how he'll destroy Mystery Babylon or the seed of the beast or the seed of Satan there, and that's the same place. And so I talk about Pergamus, and I don't believe it has anything to do with Mecca. That's my opinion. A lot of people want to bring oil and other things into this, and they have a fair argument there, but I just don't believe that. The 6th bowl would happen. You have Yom Kippur shortly after that. Okay, in the middle of this, and then you have the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, then I did something here at the end. I wanted to make sure you understood all this. So the end of the Shemitah cycle of this cycle between 2022 and 2029 ends on September 9th of 2029. Excuse me. Another thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is that if we start the millennial state on the end of the Feast of Tabernacles, actually it might be the 11th, but it would happen in this period. That's actually probably wrong. I should change that. That would start on the 11th, so I caught a mistake there. I'll correct that. And then you have 2 additional complete full blood moons on December 31st of 28, which is interesting because that takes you into the new year of 29, and June 26th of 29, which then would take you into the very end of the Shemitah cycle here in September 9th of 29. So I'm hoping that this makes some sense to you guys, and I truly believe that we are basically here. The paradigm of the 3 modern day kings seems to still be in play. It may not happen exactly on the dates that I've given you, but it does seem to matter. Psalm 90:10 does matter, and I'm sorry I misinterpreted it, thinking that the strong generation, all things would happen prior to that. That is not what it's telling us. If you go back to that, you will realize that they will get through the strong generation and then be toiling in trouble at the very end, and then be removed at that end of 28 during the Feast of Trumpets of 2028 on basically September 28th, September 20th. So hopefully this gives you a lot more in-depth information. Hopefully you understand and can follow what I'm talking about. I've updated the charts. I'll make that one correction on the end of this chart. And then I'll add these additional dates in here, guys, in these question mark areas as these events break out, because we know that they're going to happen. Turkey's getting ready to enter the battle against the Kurds. Hezbollah's getting ready to break out against Israel as a proxy of Iran. And Iran's getting ready to retaliate through proxies or themselves, which would then escalate. And then I probably should have put another one out here, because I believe that Israel would then retaliate, which might be a 6-seal event, because Jesus is not going to allow this to go nuclear, and I believe it could if it escalates much beyond that. So these are things that we should be constantly watching, guys. So I reworked this, I've added this to the chart, and I will finish making that one adjustment. And we will watch this morph till the very end. I will keep updating this in real time as this stuff happens, but I want you guys to understand what's happening here. Now, the only other thing that I see on the chart that I probably ought to bring to your attention is I've split this up between the signing of the treaty to abomination, which is 990 days, with a shortened second half of 270 days, which is a completed 1260 days. And I talk about how Antichrist only gets power for 1260 days, 3.5 years or 42 months, which would fall between April 9th to 25 to basically September 20th of 2028. So God bless everybody. Hopefully this gives you a lot more information. I don't know if anything's going to happen today, but we sure seem to be in a ramp up, and it's amazing that nobody is claiming they attacked anybody at this moment in time. They just aren't saying anything, guys. So I'm expecting Iran to bring proxies in, and I believe you'll see Hezbollah and a lot going on. But one thing I should make clear, if we've expanded this out for a year, look at how this is expanding into 25. So the next year and a half is going to be basically total upheaval and destruction in the Middle East, which is going to affect this country over here. You're going to watch fuel go up. If this breaks down, they shut the Straits of Hormuz down, your fuel will go up between 100 120. If the Saudis embargo, that will push your fuel up from basically $90 a barrel right now to maybe over $250 to $300 or higher. That will then inflate your pump prices, which will hyperinflate everybody. It will stagnate the world, and basically everybody will be in a lot of trouble prior to an Antichrist rising and a signing of a treaty around April 9th of 2025. So you got more time, guys. You got more time to put food in your home. Get your water and everything prepped. Inform people what's coming. Okay? Get right with the Lord. Mentally, physically, spiritually, in all ways, shapes, and form. But the most important thing out of all this is that you get right with the Lord Jesus and accept Him as your Savior. Because He's the only open door out here, guys, to get to the end of this picture. And hopefully we will be raptured on September 20th to 28th. I am disappointed that this is going to push out another year. But I also realize that as we're here another year, we have the ability to try to bring people to this side of the equation, and it won't be such a abrupt, just smack you in the side of the head and you go, wow, I'm left dazed here because this is just ramping up so quickly. Erdogan's getting ready to enter this battle, and this is what I mean. You've got certain events that have not occurred yet. Erdogan's not entered the battle. You've not had a sixth seal event. You've not had multiple trumpets going off. You've not had an Antichrist rise. You've not had a bottomless pit open. You are not there yet. So I knew from that compression that something was wrong with the chart. Once you move it out to the Feast of Trumpets of 28, it all lines back up again. And it makes a whole lot of sense. So God bless. Have a great night. Be safe out there and get right with the Lord. That is, to me, is the most important thing. And by you getting prepared, put a little extra back because you might be able to help that other guy, bring him to the side. So God bless.